Hey guys, my name's Jonathan Boyd. We're going to talk a little bit about what I call uniting the United States. This is a look at the symbols and propaganda used during the American Revolution. Take a look at what those symbols meant and how some of them have remained symbols throughout the history of the United States and how some of them still survive today. So here we have the definition of propaganda and symbols. Propaganda are ideas, facts, or allegations spread deliberately to further one's cause or to damage an opposing cause. Also, a public action having such effect. We'll see in relation to the Revolutionary War. These are things that promoted the war. They helped to create unity throughout the colonies and states. But we'll see a little bit more of that as we go on. Um, Symbols, kind of self-explanatory, something that stands for or suggests something else by reason of relationship, association, convention, or accidental resemblance. Importantly, a visible sign of something invisible. Um, Sometimes that's the case, sometimes not. But we'll see some examples of symbols that were used throughout the Revolution and how they related to other things and how they came to stand for certain things. All right. First example of propaganda we have here is Paul Revere's engraving of the Boston Massacre. Um, as you can see in the image, you have the British on the right, colonists on the left. British firing into a group of colonists. Um, this was a pretty big event that sparked the Revolutionary period. Um, this image circulated in the colonies. Kind of, you know, made people kind of built a sort of hate toward the British. Um, the fact that these people who weren't really doing anything wrong were gunned down in this massacre, this show of force from the British without any good cause or reason. Um, this is one of the first things to happen in the colonies that really starts to unify people, unite it, unite them. You'll see on the next slide. All right. This is the inscription that can be found under the engraving of the Boston Massacre. I won't read all of this, but I will read the highlighted part. It says, "But no fate summons to that awful goal, where justice strips the murderer of his soul. Should Venocetes, the scandal of the land, snatch the relentless villain, from her hand. Keen execrations on this plate inscribed shall reach a judge who never can be bribed." In my opinion, this is basically saying um, these cruel and villainous acts will be avenged. Um, the people of the United States aren't just going to let this go. Um, Something needs to be done about this. It's the colonies have to fight back. Um, shall reach a judge who never can be bribed. Um, I guess that kind of means it's not going to be tried by. They're not going to worry about trying it in a British court. You know, they're going to take matters in their own hands, and the people, the colonists, are going to take care of the justice system here. You know. All right, next little piece of propaganda we have here is a political cartoon. It's said to be created by Benjamin Franklin. Um, this little cartoon is known as Join or Die, as you can see in the image here. Um, this is believed to be one of the first political cartoons in America. Um, as you can see in the image, the snake, this is supposed to be a rattlesnake. The rattlesnake would be a common symbol to represent the United States. As you can see, you have NE, NY, NJ, PM. These stand for the colonies: New England, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. It's showing that divided, if they stay divided, the snake will die. Um, Join or die is basically saying we need to unite. We need to come together to fight the British, to counteract this oppression that's being placed upon us. So basically, this promotes the idea of unity. It's used to unite the colonies. This is a call really to unite the colonies together. Once again, split up the rattlesnake's cut up. He's really unable to do anything. The snake will die. But together, you have this vicious rattlesnake that's able to fight back and fight against the British. And one other popular piece of propaganda used in the United States. This is one of the most well-known pieces of propaganda, well-known piece of political literature in American history. Common Sense by Thomas Paine. This pamphlet circulated in the British colonies beginning in January of 1776. What was so impactful about this piece of literature, this piece of propaganda, is that it was plain English. It wasn't no images, no roundabout ways of saying stuff. It was straight to the point, common English. Almost anybody could read it and understand it. One of the main themes of this pamphlet was that it not only did it criticize the British, but it criticized the idea of any type of monarchy. It spoke to the fact that the Americans needed to do something because monarchies were quote unquote evil. Something had to change. And this is a big part. It's played a big role in the establishment of a new government. Americans knew they didn't want monarchies. Some may have, but this Common Sense pamphlet kind of pressed the idea that monarchies were a terrible thing, that something needed to change in the colonies, soon to be United States. This pamphlet, helped to unite people. It put the facts out there in plain English. It put together this idea that monarchies were wrong, without deliberately saying, we need to revolt. The underlying message there is, there needs to be some kind of change put into place here. So, like I said, a very popular piece of propaganda, one of the most well-known pieces of propaganda in the Revolutionary period. All right, last piece of political propaganda I have here is the American rattlesnake. As I mentioned before, the rattlesnake is a very common symbol used for the United States. In this picture, you see the rattlesnake kind of encircling these two army regiments. One is the army of General Cornwallis, the other the army of another British general whose name won't come to me right now. But anyway, on the snake's tongue, or coming off the snake's tongue, basically what this says is, we've already taken two of these army regiments, but there's still room for more. Within the tail, within the body of the snake, it still has the ability to surround even more and take even more from the British. The purpose of this propaganda is said to have been to encourage the British to surrender, as you can kind of make out from what you see. The reason I wanted to show this specific piece is, again, to go kind of transition into the idea of symbols, and the symbol of the rattlesnake. But before we get into that, one more thing about propaganda. Propaganda is seen in every war, every political movement. Generally, the purpose of propaganda is to make a point without directly saying it, without directly coming out and giving a speech about it. It's usually something that can be generalized to a bunch of people. It can be printed, as you see, like in this image, which was a political cartoon. Um, the other political cartoon I showed you, and common sense. It can be widespread, um, given to a lot of people. A lot of people can see it. Kind of helps with the idea of getting a point across. Propaganda usually attempts to, and a lot of people say it can be brainwashing, but the idea is to get the point across, and usually it's meant to help to unify a group, especially here in the American Revolution. This whole idea is to unify the American people around these ideas, around the war, around the idea of revolution. All right, now on to symbols. We'll take a look at a couple different things. We're going to look at some of the earlier symbols, later symbols, and talk about how some of the symbols are still well known and used today. Many of the symbols that are used throughout the United States that are used today were developed during the American Revolution or shortly thereafter. So we'll talk about a couple of those. Okay, this right here is one of the early American symbols. Um, One of the more forgotten symbols from the American Revolution. Um, Most people today don't really understand what the Liberty Tree is. Um, Supposedly, the symbol represents an elm tree on the corner of Essex Street and Orange Street in Boston, Massachusetts, where colonists um, in Boston used to meet to protest the Stamp Act. Um, it's also rumored that quite often they would lynch loyalists from these trees, this tree in particular. Um, the symbol kind of grew and was represented by other trees and throughout the colonies as well. During the Revolution itself, this actually was a rather popular symbol. As you can see in the bottom right, this is a design by George Washington. That is a flag design that he used to outfit a group of schooners at his own expense, depicting the Liberty Tree. Obviously, the name itself kind of relates to exactly what it's supposed to be, and you can also see it in the flag, George Washington's flag. It says an appeal to heaven. Um, this is kind of their. This symbol is supposed to be a sort of physical representation of the idea of liberty. There's a place where the colonists, united to protest. Like I said, where they united to protest the Stamp Act. Most likely, united here to protest other injustices as well. So this came to really represent, this unitized idea of liberty. All right. This symbol is actually one of my favorite symbols of the Revolutionary period. It's not a well-known symbol, and the way it's presented here is even better to me. I think it's a pretty cool idea. So on the left, you see this is a picture of Benjamin Franklin's continental currency, the $3 bill. Um, what's what I love so much about this is the eagle in this case represents Great Britain. We normally think, eagle, bald eagle, United States. Well, one of the earlier symbols to represent the United States was actually a crane. As you can see in the picture, the eagle's attacking the crane. Eagles usually more powerful, more vicious than the crane. But as you can see, even though in the image you can see, even though the crane is down, it's not out. It's still fighting back. The the crane really represents the idea of Americans fighting back, Americans revolting against Great Britain, not laying down and taking it. Even though they're weaker, they're smaller, they're still fighting back. This this is just one example of Benjamin Franklin's currency. There's actually multiple pieces of currency um, with symbols that actually depict, ideas of the American Revolution, ideas of revolution. But I picked this one because this is one of my favorite. And I really like the idea that the crane, not the eagle, in this case, represents the United States. Um, it's just kind of ironic to me. Um, but in a lot of Benjamin Franklin's continental currency, we see symbols that were popularized. Few of them are still popular today, but during the Revolutionary period, these were the symbols that represented the United States, represented the Revolution, represented the fight in the United States. Right, so the other symbols were, little symbols that are a little less known, ones that people aren't so familiar with, ones that don't really, remain today. Now we're going to look at some symbols that are rather popular. Most of them have stood the test of time. Most people are familiar with these, even from elementary school, middle school. Take a look at some of these. Try to understand what they meant, what they mean today, and what about them. Try to explain what about them help them to stand the test of time. All right, so first up we have the Liberty Bell. As its name suggests, obviously this is a symbol of liberty. Um, it's been around. The Liberty Bell was originally in Pennsylvania in the early colonial times. They used to use this to signal, church services, political meetings. It was used as a warning um, during conflicts, just a way to alert the citizens of something going on. The way it really became known as the Liberty Bell and what really made it popular was when the Continental Congress drafted up the Declaration of Independence. Um, they had these public readings of the Declaration of Independence. Um, the Liberty Bell was rung to attract citizens, to summon citizens to Independence Hall to hear the first public reading of the Declaration of Independence. That's kind of why it became the Liberty Bell, why it was so popular. Obviously, many of us probably learned about the Liberty Bell and or have seen images of it since grade school, middle school. It's a very popular American symbol. You can see in the image, this is a rather modern day photo of it. Details on the crack of the bell is kind of shady. Nobody really knows what first caused the crack, um, but there's a little popular idea that the last crack came during one of George Washington's birthday celebrations. That's when it's been you know it's not really putty. I don't really know what they call it, but it's been tacked together. It's been sealed to prevent further cracking, as it's mostly used as a relic, piece of political history. I mean, I'm sorry, a piece of American history. Um, and like I was saying in this image, this is a modern image. You see people lined up to get a glimpse of it. Um, the Liberty Bell is, like I said, one of those symbols that stood the test of time. Something that was popularized back in the American Revolution that still symbolizes, the same idea today. The idea of liberty, the idea of American unity. Um, just a really cool piece of history that kind of reminds us, who we are and where we came from. All right, the next symbol is one I like because, for one, it incorporates the rattlesnake. This may be popular to some, others may not be real familiar with the Gadsden flag, but most people have heard at some point the inscription on the bottom of the flag, "Don't tread on me." Um, the saying itself is probably more popular than the flag or the symbol. Um, but as a whole, the flag comes to represent, you know, people not kind of like the image with the eagle and the crane. The Americans not laying down and taking it anymore. Don't tread on me. I mean, obviously, don't walk on me. Don't step on me. Don't put me down. Don't try to stomp me out. Um, and the image of the rattlesnake is a good one because, like I said before, the rattlesnake represents the United States. It kind of makes the whole image, the whole symbol a little clearer. Maybe not so much today, but in revolutionary times, people were more familiar with the rattlesnake as representing the United States. Um, this kind of stands to show the heart of the United States. Like I said, that they're not going to back down. They're not going to take it. They're going to fight back for what they believe in. Um, the flag itself was designed by Colonel Christopher Gadsden um, of South Carolina. Um, this, like I said, a lot of people today might know what this is, some may not, but it's still a pretty popular flag used by local militias and a lot of people who just claim themselves as patriots. You'll see tend to fly it. Tattoos of this image are fairly common in people who would claim to be patriots. Um, it's a it's more of a not such a popular symbol, but more of a long-standing symbol. And like I said, the reason I picked this particular one is because the rattlesnake kind of help you see the rattlesnake as a symbol for the United States. In we saw a couple different examples where the rattlesnake is this representative symbol. Kind of strange that it went away from the crane and the rattlesnake to the national animal kind of being the bald eagle, which is a symbol that kind of stood for Britain back in the day. Um, I just thought the image of the rattlesnake here and the symbolism of the rattlesnake kind of ties in with the other symbols and propaganda that I mentioned. But let's take a look at one more symbol, probably the most popular symbol in the United States. That is the Stars and Stripes. Old Glory, Star Spangled Banner, has many names that we refer to her by today. This is probably the most representative symbol of the United States. Obviously, world flags are easily recognizable. But what I really want to talk about is the symbolism of this particular of the United States flag. So first of all, on the left, we see the original 13 stars and stripes. Each one of these represents, each star and each stripe represents one of the 13 original states or colonies. The red, white, and blue obviously chosen as the colors to represent the United States. What is kind of interesting, a little factoid that I heard, not sure of its validity, so don't quote me on it. The reason the old flag has 13 stripes and 13 stars is because they originally planned to, for each new state, they would add a stripe and a star. Obviously, that wasn't very practical, as they gained a lot of different states. So they decided to just leave the 13 stripes, as you can see on the right in the modern U.S. flag, the 13 stripes for each of the 13 original colonies, and then just add a star for each new coming state. So something important about the symbols that I haven't really mentioned. Symbols is when you see a symbol, it's instantaneous what it makes you think of. That's kind of the idea with a symbol. It's a way to generate thought and ideas by something that can be small, simple, um, that just makes you think of the United States, of the revolution, of liberty, of freedom. The United States flag, I'm sure, over the past few years or so, tends to be disrespected sometimes. But as a history major, for me, um, this is a representation of all the rights you have. Um, it represents the liberty. It represents our struggle for independence, um, the struggle for our freedom, mind you, a flawed sense of freedom, as the revolution was more fought for white freedom, not necessarily white male freedom, I should say, not necessarily freedom for women or freedom for colored people, natives, or you know any type of immigrant really. Um, but symbols are also what you make them. Um, as we've heard in recent history, you also have things like the Confederate flag. It becomes the Confederate flag became a racial symbol when people made it a racial symbol. Um, Symbols are what people make of them. Um, this might, to some people, the United States flag might be a symbol of oppression. To others, it's a symbol of our freedom and liberty. Symbols is what the people make it. And as we've seen with some of the other symbols, like I mentioned with the Liberty Tree, um, like I said, this was a tree that they hung loyalists from, but which is more of a has more of a negative connotation, but it was made into a more positive symbol. Um, rattlesnake is when people think rattlesnake, most people are scared of snakes, but the symbol was made into a while vicious and small, a strong force to be reckoned with. The United States, something that was going to fight back. It gave it more of a positive connotation. This kind of, like I said, 13 stars and stripes for both the colonies and the states originally. Um, Modern flag, 50 stars, 13 stripes um, for the 50 states and 13 original colonies or states. But as I was saying, symbols are all about what we make them. It's all about the connotations we give them. If we make them something negative, usually when we see them, we're going to think negative. If we make them something positive, when we see them, we're going to think something positive. It's all in how people perceive each symbol. Same with propaganda. If people view it as positive propaganda, it's more likely to create unity, to create positive ideas. If it's viewed negatively, it's going to be seen as more negative. It's going to promote negative thought and negative ideas. Just a little bit of a conclusion here. Though there's been a lot of symbols throughout American history during the American Revolution. At some point, all of these symbols held special meaning, kind of how they got to be symbols. Um, but propaganda and many of these symbols played a significant role in the way the revolution was approached, promoted, and the way it's remembered. Kind of what I was talking about with it's what people make it. These symbols were developed with most of the time nobody expected them to become these big symbols, these big pieces of propaganda. The way people reacted to them, the way people passed them along, the way people reacted to them, kind of is what gave them their significance. Um, that's kind of a theme about any type of revolution. Revolution isn't possible without people. Same goes for any symbols or propaganda that goes along with the revolution. Um, it's what people make it. Um, it doesn't become a symbol. It doesn't become popularized without people's reaction to it. Um, the symbols that have stood the test of time kind of serve to remind us as Americans of who we are, um, and they help us to remember the revolution and this critical point in American history that gave us the rights and the freedoms that we have today. That wasn't perfect at first. Didn't really, the fact that it didn't really recognize um, all people. It was mainly directed. This freedom and liberty was directed more to white males. Didn't really include enslaved people, colored people, women. Um, Even though that's to some people that's what the revolution might represent, is this white privilege or this white freedom. It's also important to remember that the revolution was the beginning of our transition to the society that we have today, that's allowed the 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 laws and the rules that we were that we created following the revolution have allowed us to create the society that we live in today. It allowed us to create new laws from old laws and to better develop our government and our nation as a whole. Um, Thank you to anyone who's taken the time to view this. Um, it's greatly appreciated. I hope you learned something from this. And thank you for your support, lovers of liberty. This is Jonathan Boyd signing off. Later.